let me ask you a question. When a person comes to realization that there's something wrong with Christianity, like, let me ask you a question. Is there a historical Jesus?
No.
And if not, explain.
It's a good question.
Because everything around Christianity or any religion is based on a belief system.
And beliefs don't, and where they have taken sublime mythology and asked, because the Christian, because it's a plagiarized origin, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When you ask them, number one, what is Christ? They will say Greek for Christos.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they deal with the word Jesus, it is a Greek word.
Mm-hmm.
And as Walter Williams showed you, the Jupiter, Zeus, is called Jupiter. Zeus is called Jupiter in Rome. And Jupiter is called Zeus in Greece. So you get the J for Jupiter and Zeus, and you get the word Jesus, which is the Hispanic, and that's all to this day.
Right,
Jesus.
Right.
Because there is no J in the Hebrew alphabet.
Right, matter of fact, the J didn't come to 1630.
Okay, so now what you're talking about here is, you got not only Jesus being a Greco-Roman concept, but you got Christ being a Greco-Roman concept, or a Greek concept. So I only want to need to ask the Christians, if Christianity came as a new doctrine, was never on the earth before, why can't you give me the Christian name? And if you say that Jesus is Hebrew, why you don't call him something by the Hebrew name? I don't want to hear nothing about Yeshua. No. You don't call him Yeshua.
That's right, never have.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't use Hebrew in English. Well, David is Hebrew. Moses is Hebrew. All the rest of them are Hebrews. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so why don't you give a Hebrew name? Why you couldn't use Jeshua or Yeshua than to use Jesus? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So my concept here is it's plagiarization, and not only did you plagiarize something, you can't even explain its origin. You see what I'm saying? As being exclusive to so-called Christianity, of this Christian movement. Now let's get into that particular concept here. We need to understand this. The origin, we need to get to the origin of this. We even need to go to the basic fundamental concept that even lies behind the ancient mystery system religions like ancient Hemmitt, ancient Samaria, even ancient Greek, which was a black race of people that they're not telling people about.
And even the Coptic came before it.
And the Coptic and all this. We need to understand. But let's go back to the ancient origin of this. And since they say Horus is predated before Jesus, which is Heru is the Egyptian Messiah, which predates Jesus by 10,000 years. You see what I'm saying? And by 10,000 years, and we go to even Krishna, who predates him for thousands of years. Then we need to ask this particular question, now what is the root behind this thing? What is it really talking about? And in order to really understand what that means, that Christos means, it's an alchemical term. So we have to go back to the schools of alchemy in Egypt. In Egypt, we didn't have a religious system. So when they say, the pagans are people who didn't have a religion, they are right. They had an educational system where education, spirituality, and all of that was combined, and they didn't separate it based on moral doctrine. Some people say, well, you mean moral doctrine? Isn't spirituality moral? No. You got your morality based on your rites of passage. Let me give you an example. You didn't need religion to be moral. Your society taught you certain things you don't do, certain do's and don'ts based on your culture. You see what I'm saying? Now, although we've had the last 2,000 years, white folks had to learn morality through religion, but that is a new political movement for morality, because they needed morality because they didn't have a culture of harmonious living.
With anyone.
Right. Even with themselves. So they needed a book on how to even function on the earth plane without eating each other's and others. You see what I'm saying? And they needed it woven into their religion or their particular, or their aspect of what they would call a simulation of spirituality. Because it's not spirituality. It's mostly political.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed a book or a doctrine. You see what I'm saying? To go by just to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And now we got the whole world is stuck in these religions, and the only thing they're doing is behavioral modification, and it has nothing to do with spirituality. You didn't have to learn how to behave in the indigenous cultures because it was part of your rites of passage. You didn't do certain things because you was raised not to do certain things.
Right.
Now we know this just in the subculture of up from slavery. Black people didn't do certain things not because of Christianity. We didn't do certain things because we created a counterculture of the greater society where we didn't do certain things. You understand what I'm saying? Because of the culture that was in, based on survival mechanisms, we had to take a strict path of common sense. You see what I'm saying? That later on became the blueprint of why America looks at us as being moral. That only started to deteriorate in the late 80s. Black people knew how to behave most of the 20th century. And based on various aspects of government input, drugs, and being in desegregation for about 20 years, the cohesiveness of our system of culture that kept us together started to erode.